Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We've seen a lot of Warzone evolutions and upgrades and updates over the time that it's been available since MW 2019 dropped, obviously. However, in all of that time from, its launch in MW 2019 through Cold War, through Vanguard, from its jump to Warzone 2, through the present with MW 3, Warzone has yet to do one specific thing when it comes to their major upgrades and updates that is finally going to be happening later on this year with the launch of Black Ops Gulf War, obviously led by Treyarch. So as we dive into this first ever update, if you enjoy the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It is always really appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you are up to date with news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns, really everything going on in COD, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. Now, Black Ops Gulf War, a little bit of recap here in case you missed it. We've covered it a handful of times up until this point. There's been a handful of leaks and rumors that have surfaced. There's a full playlist on the channel if you want to get up to speed in detail with everything, but it's going to be this usual fall launch for the standard multiplayer game, potentially a staggered launch with early access to zombies and campaign, then multiplayer becoming available shortly thereafter. But the Warzone integration this time around is going to be similar to what we've seen in years past. There's going to be an integration with Black Ops Gulf War into Warzone that we now know, and that'll likely be taking place in late fall / early winter. Usually this takes place in early December. That way there's a couple of weeks for the game to be out. If there's any major issues, the devs can attack those before they go on a holiday break. The big content leak in terms of this integration is the fact that Verdansk is supposedly going to be returning with the Black Ops Gulf War update here in its fan favorite form. Now that's kind of subjective, but I'm sure we'll learn more about what that means in the coming days, weeks, and months, but that is roughly what we know about the Gulf War integration so far. Now, as far as this goes, as I mentioned, Gulf War is a Treyarch title, and in the past, Treyarch has approached the Warzone integrations much differently than the other studios, Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer. And that's because Warzone's engine has always been very specific throughout Warzone 1 and now Warzone 2 in its current state. So dating back to Warzone 1, that was made off the MW 2019 engine. Modern Warfare 2019 and Warzone were sort of built from the ground up together, and so they obviously were essentially one-to-one there. And then Cold War dropped the following year, but Cold War being a Treyarch title, that premium game with multiplayer and zombies and everything was built off of Treyarch's engine at the time, and that's why it felt very different from MW 2019 and Warzone. It was much more arcadey, different slide cancel mechanic, all sorts of different feels when it comes to its core gameplay. They obviously ported everything over into Warzone though for the integration, and that's why there were so many issues. It was their first time doing such a thing, and obviously there were conflictions there with the engine that caused issues across the board with how Cold War guns and operators and everything there worked, and they had to iron those out over time. Vanguard then came after that, and while Vanguard was a new game obviously and it wasn't an Infinity Ward title, it was still built off a modified version and an upgraded version of the MW 2019 engine, so it was incredibly similar to what Warzone was already running on at the time. That's why that integration was a little smoother. Now it definitely still had its own issues outright objectively, but it wasn't the same situation of Treyarch trying to figure out the very first time ever porting something into that new engine for Warzone. And then we jump to Warzone 2, and this was built from the ground up alongside Modern Warfare 2022 and used the same engine as that, which again is a heavily modified and upgraded version of what we had with MW 2019. So those were obviously one-to-one. Now we have Modern Warfare 3. This game is being built off the same engine, or was built rather, because obviously it's already out. This was built off the same engine as Modern Warfare 2022 and Warzone 2 were. And going forward, we know that all future Call of Duty titles, until they end up doing another significant engine upgrade or change, are going to be built off the same engine we are playing on now. So this Warzone 2 / MW 2019 engine. And yes, that does include Black Ops Gulf War. So this is going to be the very first time that we see Treyarch in specific using the same engine as Infinity Ward and now even Sledgehammer going into their next premium game in Black Ops Gulf War. That in and of itself is going to be very interesting to see, and I'm curious to see if there's any specific things that you can definitely feel outright, okay, this is different from other Treyarch games because of the engine, or if it's just like, hey, this is actually not that big of a difference. That'll be something I'm personally looking at when I'm playing the game on day one. But then outside of that, this will also obviously be the first time that Treyarch is making a premium title built off the same engine that Warzone is running on, which means that when this integration happens, we shouldn't, keyword shouldn't, want to put a lot of emphasis on that, we should not see those significant issues that the Cold War integration had way back when, right? But not only is that seamlessness aspect sort of there, which should make life easier for quite literally everyone, but this does pose some unique scenarios for this integration, being that this is the first time Treyarch's had this situation arise. We know that Raven leads Warzone's development. They're quote unquote in charge of Warzone. However, there's also influence from Infinity Ward when it comes to certain changes in game or how certain mechanics are going to work, obviously with the premium titles in play. Same deal with Sledgehammer. When there's a title from them like Modern Warfare 3 out, they have some influence there as well. Treyarch in the past, though, hasn't necessarily been able to have that same impact because of the differences in the engines and how they're basically, making two different games. There's the Treyarch multiplayer, and then there's the standard Warzone, and there's not really much crossover. Obviously, though, with the shared engine now, that's going to change, and this gives the potential to Treyarch to have a much larger impact on Warzone-based changes. For instance, movement. I know I've seen a lot of confusion. We have to change off of this engine because we'll never be able to have this mechanic back or this movement back, and that's just not the case. We've already seen with Modern Warfare 3 and the Warzone integration this time around, they completely went away from the clunky Warzone 2 movement experience and weapon behavior experience that we had there and made it much more in line with Warzone 1 with slide canceling, low recoil guns, so on and so forth. Treyarch's game, the multiplayer at least, has already been rumored to have more of an upgraded dolphin diving feature. Slide canceling will still be a thing, tac sprint will still be a thing, but we're going to have different functions in various different areas that could tie more into Warzone, which is definitely cool. We've talked about recently in some leak videos how gestures and sprays and stuff like that could be coming back, and obviously shared engine, if it's working over in multiplayer, it could be working in Warzone as well. So things like that, core gameplay mechanics and stuff could have a much larger Treyarch influence for once within Warzone, which would be interesting to see. Gunplay similarities. Obviously, when you look back to Cold War, weapons in Cold War multiplayer felt way different than they did over in Warzone. That's going to be more of a one-to-one type thing now, similar to, MW3 multiplayer versus Warzone, for instance. And across the board, really, that similar feel between multiplayer gameplay and Warzone gameplay, it's going to be more seamless. And that's part of why this situation is arising in the first place. Call of Duty in the past has expressed they want Warzone and its ties to multiplayer and to the premium titles to be more seamless. Now, this has its own pros and cons that we've talked about before, but it does make it so that you're not seeing huge drastic differences in multiplayer gameplay and how a game feels there versus when you jump into Warzone and how the game feels there. So Treyarch's got a very cool opportunity with this integration this year, one that has never been present or available to them before, and I am very curious, cautiously optimistic about what could be happening with the integration this time around. Obviously, we're still a ways from this happening. As I mentioned, this is likely happening in early December based off of history, but we're going to learn a lot more about this in the coming weeks and months as we approach the full-on reveal season for Black Ops Gulf War. And you already know whenever new info does surface, I'm gonna have you covered with all the need to know details right as they happen. So stay tuned by hitting that subscribe button and turning on those post notifications. And if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and drop a like on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.